Hello everyone and welcome to our street talk discussion of Weddings of Weatherfield Part 2. It's really echoey.
Ding dong,
Isn't
weddings.
it echoey?
Maybe a little bit echoey. We're on our new podcasting room today, everybody. We've been decorating so much since the last time, but the room is a bit empty, so maybe a bit of an echo. We're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to fill it with stuff, aren't we? It's a work in progress at the moment. So sorry if it is a little bit. Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? Never mind. I hope you don't mind, everybody, but we're very, very excited to be in a proper room that we've designed ourselves just for podcasting and other things. So we've been painting the walls, we've been having people put shelves up because I can't do it myself, got a new sofa. We've been so busy, haven't we?
It took us many days to get it to this level.
Yes, but I'm so happy with it. Really happy with it. We've got there's not much in it at the moment. We've got a TV in front of us with my games consoles and stuff. We put some shelves up, there's some games. Got my little shelves and little Nintendo models on. But the idea is that we're going to I'm going to be able to put some tasteful Nintendo artwork on one room, one wall that Gemma gets to vet, of course, and then some tasteful Coronation Street stuff. We're literally going to have a Coronation Street wall behind us, aren't we?
Yeah.
Which can hopefully make an appearance in any video that we do. Do you want to talk a little bit about what our idea for that wall is? What sort of stuff are we going for?
This
you
is
are
now
the artiste.
turning into a different thing to what
just a little mini intro.
I know, but this is supposed to be an evergreen show.
I can. But you can fast forward this for a little bit. It's exciting. People are excited about a room. What's
They're
going to go on our wall
excited.
behind us? They totally are. There's people on the.
We've got our ducks. We've got some of those the postage stamp.
Yes.
Things. We've got
the giant stamps. Yeah.
The giant stamps. We've got some photos of us with various.
We got some pictures that we've taken over the years. Some of our Corrie friends and Corrie stars that we've met.
I want to find our picture of us in the Rovers.
Yeah.
If we can.
Yeah.
But you said you think it's too blurry.
It maybe is. I think it's a bit low res. You said you were trawling the internet for pictures of Patricia Phoenix today, were you?
Yes, I was.
I just saw that text earlier, so.
Yes.
What sort of thing are you looking for there?
Just like classy photos.
It needs
well,
to be
lots
classy,
of I really like
not too nerdy.
Behind the scenes background pictures.
Yeah.
I think they look cool.
Yeah, like sort of candid shots of the classic cast. It's going to look great. I don't know when it's all going to be ready because we need to buy this stuff first. We need to get some money. We need to get paid.
We have run out of money.
What day is it? It's still a couple of weeks until I get paid from school.
And also, the step has broken in the decking.
We have had, literally on the day that we finished our lovely room, then I stepped through a step on our decking down to our garden, which is a bit sucky. I only just painted it a few weeks ago as well. But anyway, that's where we're at the moment. That's why we're maybe sounding a little bit echoey. We'll work on it by filling the room with stuff. And let's talk Weatherfield Weddings Part 2. I hope you all enjoyed last week's episode, which was very kind of stats based, wasn't
echoey.
it?
Yeah.
It's alright. It's just an experiment for this. It'll be fine. People will understand.
Let's get on with it.
Let's get on with it. So this is the second half of our Weddings of Weatherfield discussion. Last week was very stats based, where we looked at things like who's been married the most, lengths of weddings did we look at? I can't remember. The most common months for weddings to go on.
Length of weddings or length of marriages?
Lengths of marriages. I got marriages and weddings wrong.
You still don't
all
know
of
the
last
difference.
week's episode, and I think it's going to be the same this week. And this week we're just going to be looking specifically at wedding episodes. So some of the big ones, memorable ones, what we enjoy about watching weddings, that sort of thing. So Gemma, do you like a Weatherfield wedding?
No.
That's not what you're supposed to say.
Yes, I do. I like weddings. I like to see the dresses and the fashion. There's usually some hilarious fashion faux pas, especially on the part of the guests in Coronation Street weddings. You can usually count on a few mutton dressed as lambs or some chavvy people wearing inappropriate fascinators.
Yeah, but you definitely always look out for what the dresses are, aren't you? That's something that there's always a comment on.
Always like the dress, to see the dress.
Compare it to your own wedding dress, see how that.
No, I don't compare. What's the point of comparing it? It's my wedding dress, nobody else's wedding dress.
And sometimes the suits, although they can be a little bit dull, can't they? Although Imran certainly made up for that last week with his little mauve number.
Yeah.
I just like the whole eventness of it. Mauvey, purpley, maroony kind of colour it was, wasn't it? What colour would you say
I thought it was red.
No, it wasn't red. There's a bit purple in that, I think. I don't know. I just kind of like, and we don't get this as much these days with weddings, having an event that the whole community can get round, sitting them all there in the church or the register office or anything. And I know the cast absolutely hate it. I think we mentioned that last week, didn't we? Sitting around having to just stay quiet while the people at the front do everything. Burgundy suit, wine coloured.
Yeah, look, it's red.
Okay, fine, okay.
Purple.
This is whatever in my head. And it's just, I
think he was dressed up as the Joker.
I like the happiness of the event.
Yeah, that's
particularly
true.
if it's
happy community gathering.
Yeah. And also the possibility that maybe there's going to be some extra drama kind of juxtaposed with it as well. I mean, particularly, I think the most famous one of that in my head is when Judy Mallet died while Ashley and Maxine got married.
Yeah, but she didn't die at the church. She had the decency not to do that. She
had the decency to stay at home and keel over, because that would have been quite a downer at the ceremony itself. I think it was during the reception afterwards, wasn't it? But something like that, or I like a good jilting. I also like about weddings, it's sometimes, rarely, an opportunity for characters to come back as well.
Oh yeah,
we've had that a few times with like McDonald weddings, where maybe Andy's returned occasionally for one of his brother's many weddings. But if we don't get a return, then at least I can be placated with people on the phone giving their reasons for why they can't return.
I thought you hated that.
I kind of used to it now. It's a bit of a Corrie tradition. It's a bit of a Corrie trope, isn't it? Yeah. Like, what's the reason that their mother, brother, sister, best friend can't make it to this wedding? Oh,
they don't think it's going to last. Oh, okay. No, do I.
Like, I mean, and again, we didn't have that last week with like Janice not turning up at the wedding. We didn't have any particular reason for that. But I always think it's quite funny how that happens. I was saying earlier about getting everybody together and also the returning characters. Sometimes, and again, maybe this was more in the past, it felt like, you got the telegrams, didn't you? Do you remember when we watched those 60s and 70s episodes from before?
But I think, is this not what they used to do in the old days? I don't know.
I think they did, yeah. Apologies for so-and-so who can't make it today, but they've read a lovely telegram out. And that's quite nice, because it kind of pays tribute to the fact that obviously these characters can't all come back, but it makes them still feel alive.
Yeah, people probably couldn't travel as easily or as cheaply, and they couldn't get time off. So it would make sense to have, but it feels like a notice board in a community centre when you have a bunch of letters from people who couldn't be there. I really liked how they did that in Old Corrie, and everyone would go, hooray! Yeah,
I'm imagining this has probably happened, like when Emily and Ernest got married, it's like, and here's a message from Mr. Nugent. Not Mr. Nugent, Mr. Swinley. And
Dear Mr. and Mrs. Bishop, hooray!
It's just lovely, and you're just like, who they're going to mention. It makes it feel more real and alive, isn't it? And it's just a shame that can't happen quite so much these days.
Well, that's because people don't do it anymore. Although, what they could have done is have Zoom weddings where people go, I can't come, but I want to watch it on Zoom.
Anything else wedding-y that you particularly enjoy and you look out for to make a perfect wedding for you? Because I quite like I like it when they go out on location. Again, not so much recently. Like a nice church. It's something pretty to look at in the background, isn't it? But even going off to the register office, makes a nice change of pace. And any excuse for them to get away from the set is a good thing in my book. But hopefully in the future we'll be able to get more onto that, and we're not just consigned to bistro, Chariot Square, bistro, maybe community garden. Anything else, do you reckon?
About locations?
No, just about weddings wise.
No, not really. I mean, it's been an unusual couple of years for weddings, so I can't wait for it to get back to the good old days.
In some ways, Corrie has had to be a little bit more creative with their weddings, and just because you got that there's only so much that you can do.
And the trouble is, it's not even like they've been able to go, here's a COVID wedding, blah blah blah. It's like they can't even do what people would actually do in COVID.
I mean, the classic example of one that was just silly from the recent years is Gary and Maria, wasn't it? When everyone's like, show us your rings, because they couldn't have Samia and Mikey kissing each other or even standing next to each other. That was like, that was a bad move. And is there really any storyline has the storyline got better with the fact that they've got married rather than just... She's not even changed her name, has she? She's not become
Maria Windass. Oh, it doesn't count if you don't change your name.
I hope we can get away from those soon. But yeah, all the other drama that goes around it too. So is there going to be a punch up? Is there going to be a reveal? Because quite often it's a bit of a Corrie trope that in the lead up to the wedding, either the bride or the groom has got a dark secret. And we've had that recently with, again, Imran and Toya. They're obviously on our minds at the moment, having just tied the knot last week. But has the bride had it off with the best man recently? Or is the bride secretly pregnant with somebody in the congregation? Has the husband...
Hang on a minute. Is the bride secretly pregnant with someone in the congregation?
Someone in the congregation's baby.
No, that would be pretty exciting.
Where's Auntie Mildred? Oh, there you go. That's the sound of giving birth to Auntie
Sorry,
Mildred.
I'm late.
Took a wrong turning on the M6.
Suddenly ended up in a tunnel.
Or in the case of when Pat Phelan and Eileen got married, he'd literally just smacked Andy Carver over the head with a laptop mere hours before, and he's got the mud on his shoe, and you think, he buried him somewhere, but he hadn't even killed him, had he?
Secrets,
so
lies.
I love all that, although sometimes, again, it does turn into a little bit... what's that noise?
Well, that's every time that happens, you say, "What's that noise?"
What's that
it's
noise?
the sound of the bathroom.
We're
some reason.
We're not in an actual podcast studio, we're at a house. Yeah, or sometimes it gets a little bit... I sometimes just want them to have a happy wedding.
Has there ever been a truly happy wedding?
I think there's been some, and as we go through some in today's episode, maybe more in the early years, that did happen, but sometimes Corrie think, we have to have some kind of drama, and you don't necessarily. And one of the things I like about weddings is that when there's a couple that we can be truly invested in, and we've seen kind of courting and getting to know each other, over the course of years maybe, then finally have the wedding, that's brilliant, and that's all I need. It's when they sometimes say, well, let's bung them together, we'll get them married in 6 months, give them a baby, maybe 1 or 2 months either way from the wedding. It just feels a bit rushed and temporary, I was thinking of other kind of Corrie wedding tropes as well, and I've run out of ideas a little bit, but I do like the reveal of what the characters' middle names are.
Oh, a classic. You've got if you're a Coronation Street character and you have a normal middle name, are you even a Coronation Street character?
Did Toya get her middle name mentioned in last week's wedding? I don't remember.
What Imran...
Toya Laverne Battersby? I don't think they could have done, no, because Imran...
Never heard whether...
I think he's still...
And what's his birthday?
Yeah, still don't know. I like the receptions. I like everyone getting drunk there. Maybe the fallouts.
Yeah, well, we just watched the DVD of the last decade Coronation Street collected episodes. Was it from there or was it from a...
Yeah, it was...
So that was...
I think so.
We watched Carla and Tony Gordon's wedding.
Yeah.
And Sally gets completely smashed, doesn't
Yeah.
she? So that's the sort of thing you kind of want. People with axes to grind.
Yeah.
Like causing a ruckus, or people being invited and everybody watching them like a hawk going, they're going to ruin it, they better not say anything, I'm gonna have a go.
Well,
and everyone's
that was the wedding where Sally knew that in the run up to the wedding.
Well, I thought I didn't know whether we were going to talk about it later.
Oh, we can talk about it now. It doesn't matter. It was she knew that.
She knew that
Rosie
took
photos of Carla having a snog with Liam,
Yeah.
Maria's husband, who by that time was dead, and Sally tells Maria partway through the reception,
Yeah, because
doesn't she? Because she's totally
Maria's
smashed.
crying about the fact that she's sad her boyfriend is dead and they can't ever get married, and Sally sees and she's like, oh, I don't think you should be crying about him. He's a big cheater.
It's great. Love that stuff. The other thing about receptions is you got your speeches, and I do love it. It seems to be a bit of a tradition as well that you can't say a best man speech or a groom speech without somebody in the audience interrupting. It's almost like they leave the pauses in for some witty comment from someone in the audience. There, so there's a bit of a trope there as well.
What about writing your own vows?
Writing your own vows, yeah, that's a bit of a bugbear of yours, isn't it? In real life as well?
No, because I've never been to a wedding where people have made up their own vows, but I just think on Coronation Street, sometimes I think the writers think, I'm going to stun everyone with my romantic prose. And really, it's just the same old crap, except it's slightly reworded. Like, why can't you just say, till death us do part, yada, yada, yada? If you're only going to say, it's like, so you just go through with synonyms for every single thing that you say in normal wedding vows and then go, made it my own.
I just thought of another Corrie tropey irritant when somebody's preparing for a speech and they're nervous about what they're going to say and everything, and then they just get up there and go, you know what, I'm going to say it from
my heart.
And then they do this brilliant,
very eloquent
word play. Yeah.
It's just and everyone goes, oh, what a wonderful sentiment.
You said about the vows earlier, and you didn't like made up vows. You just want to see the traditional ones.
I don't want anyone who's made up their own vows to get annoyed at me. But hopefully that you would agree with me that Coronation Street is not particularly good examples of how to do your own vows.
Well, when you're in real life and you write your own vows, you're not doing it there to show off your writing talents. I assume it's
it should be your honest expression of love, shouldn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it should. Well,
rather than, hey, listen to this.
Back in the early days of Coronation Street, and here's my little sequence into the first bit. You couldn't actually see the vows at all because there were a few weddings that went on in the show, but they didn't show the ceremony, did they? And the very first...
Yeah, I don't think they were allowed. I don't know if they were...
I'm not sure whether they were allowed.
It was too scandalous.
Maybe. I mean, the very first wedding that they had on the show was really early on. It was on episode 26 of Coronation Street back on the 13th of March 1961. And that was between Joan Walker and Gordon Davies. And you might be saying, who on earth is that?
I
wouldn't blame you. But Joan Walker, I mean, there's the clue in the surname there, was the daughter of Annie Walker and Jack, the landlord and landlady of the Rover's Return. And I don't... Not at all main or important or whatever characters.
It was it was more significant at the time because it was 4 months into the show, and this was the daughter of prominent characters. They might have thought this would be, I mean, it was a big deal at the time, but there weren't very many characters who were in a position to get married at that point, were there? Because they were either married or they were single, I think, or just only started dating in the show. Yeah,
I think you're right. I mean, definitely in the early days of Coronation Street, when the cast was incredibly limited, there's only so much opportunity for wedding among the main characters.
I'm trying to think of was Joan even in it? And I don't really remember if she was.
I don't think she was. I think she kind of swanned in for her wedding. So it was a nice event, and it was interesting because this was only episode 26.
Yeah.
That the early days of Coronation Street saw the importance of these huge family events that for making fun episodes out of that people would remember.
If that's episode 26, she wasn't in the first 13 episodes, was she, Joan?
I don't think so. No.
And my favourite part about that, have I said this already in the last episode? The fact that Minnie bought them a pickle fork.
Did they?
And I have been waiting my whole life for a pickle fork. And when I first saw that episode and she goes, I brought them a pickle fork, I went, who needs a pickle fork? And ever since then,
you've had a hankering.
I've gone, you know what I need right now? A pickle fork. I could really use a pickle fork to get my cornichons out of this jar.
Well, now you've put it out there, maybe one of our
Can somebody buy me a pickle fork? Preferably one with a nice picture of Minnie.
Yeah.
On the end, going, oh.
Engrave it yourself.
Minnie's great at weddings.
Minnie was always one for crying in the congregation, wasn't she? It was at Dennis Tanner and Jenny, I can't remember what her surname is, we got her later on, and that was one of my favourite episodes of the 60s. That was when they got married, and then they come out of the room afterwards, and Minnie throws confetti at them, and then she says, well, I just wanted to, and then the camera kind of pans to a sign that says no confetti.
Love that. She's such a rebel. She's like, I've lived through the war, I don't care.
Yeah, but she was also one for crying as well. Yeah. So beautiful. I did. I love Minnie.
And Nina looking at her like, you soft idiot.
Yeah. Sometimes you get Ina on the harmonium, on the. It's been interesting seeing over the years which Coronation Street characters have suddenly acquired keyboard or piano or organ playing skills just for the purposes of weddings. Like even Norris did it at one wedding, I think I remember. But Ina was definitely a go-to in the early days.
Well, we always admire the sort of the cast of yesteryear for their multi-talented entertaining backgrounds. Like, they used to work in the music halls and they were comedians and musicians and stage stars. We sort of kind of insinuate that Coronation Street stars of current times are not as multi-talented or multitasking. But you know, you think about them these days. They're, you know, influencers and pop stars.
Well, don't forget, we did see old Dan Brocklebank tickling the Ivories at Christmas last year.
Now, is it tickling or tinkling?
Tinkling. It came out as a tickle in there, didn't it? I know.
Well, we've heard arguments for both.
So we have actually. So that was the first wedding, but I would say the first wedding of main characters was still fairly soon that year. It was in episode 84, and that was when Concepta Riley tied the knot with Harry Hewitt on the 2nd of October 1961.
See, this was two characters that had fallen in love on the show, haven't they? In under a year.
Yeah.
Even back then they were moving quickly, but I think in those days you had to, because otherwise you might welcome your bundle of joy slightly too early.
Yeah, long engagements weren't necessarily a thing, were they? I think that was the wedding where there was a bit of a to-do about the Catholic and the Protestant getting married, wasn't there?
Okay.
I think that was this one, and people were saying, well, how would this happen, or which church would they get married in?
Yeah, I think I remember something about that.
Yeah, but what particular thing that I remember about that episode is that at the end of it, they had this like a funny slowed down version of the theme music, and changing the music over the credits at the end became a little bit of a Corrie wedding tradition for a while. There were a few of them over the years that played something different. It's like they knew that it's a special episode and a special occasion like this merits just why not having a different bit of music, which I think maybe they should try and bring back sometime. Don't just save it for Christmases. So that was another one. Like I said earlier, they didn't show the actual ceremony, but we did get to see the reception. That was the first Corrie wedding reception with the telegrams and so on. So that was kind of cool. But the first on-screen ceremony we actually saw, Gemma, you can take over from this one. Gemma, I'm telling you, was Elsie and Steve Tanner, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right. Episode 702, and this was Elsie's long lost American wartime beau, wasn't it? He had come over with his lads to
the Yanks are over in Weatherfield, weren't
they? To make her an honest woman, and Elsie Tanner was
nice try. That's a bit of a tall order, isn't it?
Elsie Tanner was such a popular character that they had this, Steve Tanner marry her so she wouldn't change her surname, which I think was like almost progressive, but totally missed the point. So this was, did you say 6th of September 1967?
Yeah.
And they had, we got to see the whole thing in the church.
They really milked it. I remember when we watched this one, it felt, because I think it started in the church, or very early on in the episode, they get on with it, because they go through almost all of the vows, don't they?
Well,
it's like they've suddenly been given the permission to show a Corrie wedding ceremony, and by gum, they took up the opportunity.
Well, this was like Corrie royalty, really, wasn't it? This was like the royal wedding of Coronation Street. So we wanted to watch every single detail and every moment. I can imagine people at home, I don't know if this is what happened, but I can imagine, the mums and the grands and the little girl on the knee watching old Elsie getting hitched to her wartime love and all, the hankies and...
Well, yeah, I think it's kind of, back in those days particularly, it made you feel like you were a member of the congregation as well, didn't it? And having a huge extract to the ceremony certainly helped that out. But it was also, that was the first example of there being a proper extra drama going on, because that was also the episode where Harry Hewitt buys it, in inverted commas, at the end, doesn't he? He gets squashed underneath the van when he's trying to fix it at the end of the episode. So that kind of thing, there being a wedding but also a disaster going on, you think that's quite modern.
Was that like the prototype?
I think it was. Just, not even 1,000 episodes under its belt, and Coronation Street was already killing people on somebody else's wedding day.
Yeah.
That was also the first episode that Ernest Bishop appeared in as well.
As the photographer.
Fans. Yeah, he was a photographer, wasn't he? Although he was called Gordon back in that episode. So it's always funny to see the first appearance of certain characters and how they change. And sometimes it's in personality, sometimes it's by name. So yeah, this is where I think Emily and Ernest first met. So a long, cut short romance was a first blossom there, I think. And also, trivia about that episode, that is the second most repeated episode ever on terrestrial TV.
Really?
How do you like that? It's been
what, the
repeated
first
3
one?
times, 3 whole
Oh.
times. No other episode. Yeah, the first episode has been like shown 5 or 6 times on terrestrial TV now, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
Very nice.
And the first colour wedding was another one of Elsie Tanner's, wasn't it? So this is when she got married to Alan Howard in July 1970.
Who was her real life husband to be.
Yes, that's right. And this is also a very weird episode because...
Yes.
Right, whereas Elsie's first wedding had very long vows and ceremony, this one
one was kind of like her first one was kind of like almost chaste and very kind of religious and solemn, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, like.
And this one had a weird scene of her and Alan walking through a strange flower garden to flamenco music for what seemed like 5 minutes before they actually got to the church. And she's there with her big hat and.
This was like the sort of thing that you watch on Top of the Pops and made people invent music videos. Because like, you know what, instead of having Elsie wandering through a garden with flamenco music, we could just have the band play and watch them instead.
It was so bizarre. It looked a bit like one of those,
it was
you can
hilarious.
buy this CD and get all these music. I can imagine like a track listing scrolling through the screen.
Big hits like Flamenco in the Garden.
Yeah, exactly.
And Elsie Tanner gets hitched.
It's like they were saying, well, this is the first colour wedding, so we're going to show a load of flowers just to make the most of it.
Couldn't see these before, could you? Look at this.
Yeah, exactly. That was also the first wedding of someone that we'd already seen marry as well. And obviously these days, it's like, how many weddings you done? Is this your fifth, sixth, seventh time down the aisle? But...
She had the decency of making sure her first husband was dead first.
That's true, yeah. Steve Tanner had some fortunate stairs-related accident by this point. Yeah, so they kind of had the secret wedding ceremony, but Beth and Len find out and turn up in time for the ceremony. And then they have a nice knees up at the Rovers at the end. So that was a kind of a nice episode.
It was, but it was just like watching aliens trying to learn how to make a television programme with this weird flamenco section.
First bigamous marriage, Emily Bishop and Arnold Swain in 1980. Last. Certainly not the last.
It's really tragic that you can say this was the first time they had a bigamous wedding. Yeah, Emily Bishop and Arnold Swain in 1980. And when it comes to LGBTQ weddings, we've only had one.
Well, yeah, we kind of have, haven't we? One and only.
We've had more bigamous weddings on Coronation Street than LGBTQ ones.
Yeah, so this is Hayley and Roy we were talking about here. I mean, I couldn't even say the first gay wedding because there hasn't been one on Coronation Street within 62 years. So it got close a few times with Sean and Sophie, and then again with Rana and Kate a couple of years ago. But yeah, Hayley and Roy, the only LGBTQ one that's only been there.
When I was looking on eBay for photos of Coronation Street to put in this room, a weirdly large number of Sean and Sophie pictures came up, and I was like, just them like sort of snoodling each other, and
they were a popular couple among a certain segment of the Corrie community.
I don't want that particularly. It's not classy.
Not gonna have classy. Stan and Sophie, I know what that's fine.
No.
But yeah, the Hayley and Roy wedding in 1999 was one that I remember watching the first time, and it was really nice revisiting it.
Did it
recently.
even happen? I can't remember.
It was the one where they get to the church, but then Les Battersby has tipped off the journos, including, I think, Ian Kershaw playing a journalist at this point. In fact, maybe, I can't remember. And so they can't take place because obviously with Hayley being a transsexual, they found it quite difficult to locate a church and a vicar who would marry them, and they found Jessica Lundy.
She called herself, that was what she was called at the time, but now we would say she is transgender, just to be clear.
Yes. And they get there ready for the wedding, but the paps are all there, so they have to scurry back home. Yeah. Hayley goes upstairs distraught.
Poor
But
Hayley.
then little does she know that downstairs they're organising a secret special wedding ceremony in the
It's not
cafe.
Really, even that wasn't
lovely.
Even really a real wedding, was it?
No,
because
it wasn't. That didn't,
legal.
That legally didn't count, which is why we got another wedding for them about 11 years later or something. But that's all. That was quite exciting. It had,
and of course, was this before gender recognition came into effect? So
I think so.
The trouble was that because Hayley's birth certificate still had the wrong sex on it for her, they couldn't get married because gay weddings weren't legal.
No.
So they were in a right conundrum. They thought they got their way around it, but then bloody Les ruins it.
Yeah, but that was so lovely because that had been a relationship that we'd seen slowly blossoming over 2 years, and Roy, the first woman that he'd ever kind of fallen in love with, and Hayley, the same. Roy was her one true love, and and they were so cute, and they kind of split up a little bit in the early years, didn't they, when Roy couldn't really get the right words out about how he felt about her. But it felt like a proper romance leading up to that one, and the fact that they had the little blip where you thought it wasn't going to happen, leading to a nice cosy wedding. It's just lovely. It reminded me a little bit it reminds me now of Jenny and Johnny, where they don't get married in a particularly traditional place, but it's somewhere that's very special to them. Yeah, they're with Rita in the hospital, and that was just great. And there's some other cool stuff with like Toya not being allowed to go to the wedding, being the stepdaughter of Les, and she has to climb down Gary's ladder to get there and stuff.
Janice attacks Les with a frying pan, which I think everybody was really into.
Yeah, and so that's probably one of my favourite weddings. I mean, we'll get onto some other ones. We're just looking at firsts at the moment, but that was really nice.
I forgot that the vicar who was supposed to be marrying them, she was in it. She's been in it in lots of different roles, but I forgot.
I can't remember whether there's lots of roles, but she has recently, in the past year or two, been in it playing a judge. Or a magistrate or something.
She probably was like, I've got to get out of this vicaring game.
Yeah,
it's too close-minded.
Well, that was filmed at a church in Duckenfield, I think, which I visited a couple of years ago, because they found it very difficult to find a church that would actually allow them to film an LGBTQ wedding in, but this particular one.
See, and this was only 23 years ago.
How times have changed.
Yeah.
And 23 years later, we still haven't had a gay wedding.
Nope.
So I think Corrie needs to rectify that at some point soon.
Like I
it's
said,
dragging its heels just
if I was a producer, I'd have an agenda of a few very urgent things.
Yeah.
And one of them would be sort this out. But I think it gets to the stage where, if you're the producer, do you really want to take the heat for making the first gay wedding and having everybody go to you? How come you're not doing it? You only just done it and it's 2022 and you haven't had one yet.
If I was a producer, I'd be like, well, I've not been the producer.
It's not my fault.
I just came in and I did it. It's really baffling how they've not gone down that route. Honestly,
especially
it feels
considering
like it could be an easy win.
That Tony Warren was a gay man, and he's the creator of Coronation Street. You'd think in tribute to him they should have done something.
Yeah,
to celebrate.
It's a shame that he has never got to see it. He didn't live to see the eventual first gay wedding.
We might not even live to see it.
Not at this rate. We have seen the first Hindu wedding though, haven't we? That was Dev and Sunita. In fact, I'm going to probably say that was the first religious non-Christian wedding that there's been, because I don't. We've had an Islamic wedding with Zidane and Rana since then, haven't we? But I can't think of any other faiths whose wedding ceremonies have been reflected. But that was quite funny because the whole of the episode was like commented through by Roy, and he'd done his research about
it was like the David
all the Hindu wedding
Attenborough
traditions. That was, I think, but so for many members of the audience, that was probably quite helpful actually.
I know, it's one of those things where you can make fun of it, but as somebody who doesn't know any Hindus and would never be invited to a Hindu wedding, I'm sure, being like talked through it, maybe it is a bit patronising and condescending in a way, but in another way it is kind of like, we know you guys don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, but the thing is though, if you're Hindu watching that, it might have felt a bit othering, especially when the whole point of of that wedding is like, look, we're representing you too. You know, if you're kind of watching something you've never seen, a Hindu wedding before on Coronation Street, and the whole way through it's like, and look at their funny customs.
Yeah.
You might feel a bit like, oh
look
God,
how bright and colourful it is.
Now this is the bit where the bride you know what I mean, like.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That wedding episode was also kind of dramatic as well, because Dev gets arrested at the end.
Dev gets married at the end.
He gets married and then he gets arrested.
The thing is, Coronation Street did do a good job of that commentary, because it was Roy, and Roy is the sort of character that you would totally expect to do this from, and he's the sort of person who would have done his research and he would be talking about it like totally, he is an explorer finding new lands.
Yeah. We've got our first Christmas Day wedding, haven't we? Was it? I think we've mentioned in the last week's podcast that there's only been one wedding on Christmas Day so far, Claire and Ashley.
So is it the first or is it just the only?
Well, you could say that for quite a few of my firsts, actually, couldn't you?
Right. So, yeah, they got married on Christmas Day 2004. And I always think she reminds me a little bit of Belle from Beauty and the Beast when she wears a big cloak.
Yeah.
She had a nice big cloak.
She did, nice big fluffy one. I liked it when they walked out of the church and there was like a line of butchers holding their meat cleavers in an arch. That's quite nice.
I'd rather have that than a bunch of black pudding.
Yeah, that was the episode where Norris had to play the church organ.
Right.
In it, as I said earlier. But I think on the whole, I don't particularly rate that episode very highly, although I did enjoy both of Ashley's weddings to some extent because Fred was such a proud father, wasn't he?
I love Fred.
And I think that's another really important thing that makes a classic Coronation Street wedding for me, having a lovely, supportive, proud family.
Yeah,
and yes,
like
it's fun to have
speech.
the family arguments, but having like
just that
sombre...
The bit before they go in and the parent going, I might not have ever said this to you, but you know, I am proud of you, don't you? Yeah,
and some one episode back in the 60s that I particularly like for that as well was, I bring it up again, Dennis Tanner's wedding to Jenny Sutton, because there's a lovely scene at the beginning of that where they're all, who is it? Elsie and his sister, what's his sister called? Linda Tanner were in bed together at the beginning of the episode, just mum and daughter staying in bed because that's what you did in the old days. Dennis comes in all excited about getting married, and just before they get out to go into the church, Dennis kind of says to Mum, "Oh, Mum, thanks for everything, you know." And it was just lovely, considering he'd been such a tearaway all his life, having a serious moment like that. It was really, really sweet. And that also had a really moving best man speech from Jerry Booth at the end of it as well, because he's just come out of a failed marriage with Myra, and he's usually a bit of a comedy kind of guy that people made fun of a little bit, wasn't he? Well, I don't know whether it was a sourpuss, but he was just so softly spoken and easily teased. And then he gets up and he says, "Oh, you know what it means when you say I love you." I'm not remembering this, I've written it down. It means I want you to love me, and that's not the same thing at all. And that kind of thing is really quite profound. Deep, isn't it? And profound, yeah. And then he gets all flustered about if a marriage doesn't work, and he says, "And if it doesn't work, this isn't champagne, it's salt water." And it moments like that where you can just kind of take a moment to appreciate the seriousness of the occasion was quite good too.
See, this is what I think sometimes with the vows. That's one of my bugbears about the vows, is I feel like they put those things into the vows instead of other moments.
Having people just saying them naturally, yeah, that's true. But yeah, I think when we did a Patreon episode a few years ago of top episodes of the 60s, I think that was in my top 5. I really, really did rate that. And Dennis Tanner was a massive revelation for us as a character when we went back and watched the old 60s episodes. So to see him get married to this Jenny Sutton, who is a shrug, who's that? So it doesn't. That's a bit of a shame. I would have maybe liked him to have married somebody who I felt a bit more about. But there was so much loveliness in that wedding, and the family bond between him and Elsie was just great. And going back to what I was saying earlier, Fred being the proud father of Ashley, when he, for most of Ashley's life up until that point, had been calling himself his uncle, because it wasn't long before Ashley's wedding to Maxine, I think, that Fred reveals that he's actually his dad. It was just lovely. And in that second wedding, no, in the first wedding, Ashley and Maxine, that's when it kind of comes out to the public, because Ashley says, "Oh, this is me dad," and it is a lovely opportunity to reveal to the world this secret that he's been keeping for a little while. Yeah. And also, do you remember in that episode, Ashley's real mum shows up? Yeah. And she's kind of skulking around the graveyard, isn't she? And she's like, "I don't know whether I'm really welcome here." And then Ashley kind of invites her in, and they have a lovely, happy family time together. But then you have Judy Mallet dying at the end of the episode. It just ruined the moment a little bit. But that one, if I was to be thinking about what are some of my favourite Corrie weddings ever, I would probably say that Ashley and Maxine's first one were only one for those two would be in my top 10 somewhere anyway. So let's kind of transition to some other very notable weddings that Coronation Street have had over the years, and whether we've got anything particular of note to say about them. Skipping ahead, because in the early days we said last year there weren't very many weddings, or they didn't show them on screen. It wasn't until like the 80s or 90s that it became a big thing, didn't it? And I think the Ken and Deirdre wedding in 1981 was one of the early massive hyped up weddings in the media, and one of the things that made it so stand out so much was that it was in the same week as Princess Diana and Prince Charles getting married, which was fantastic considering that, you know, the Prince of Wales and his wife versus Corrie's premier couple. I mean, I don't even know whether back in the early 80s whether Ken was seen as being such a legend, because it's like back then it's like, well, he's only been in it 20 years.
No, but Ken and Deirdre are definitely a power couple. Whether or not Ken, you know, you're right to say that, you know, he wasn't a legend.
Character.
Yeah, he was, you know.
He became a legend when we kind of realised we're stuck with
He's
him.
the only one left.
So there's a bit of a myth going around with that episode, is that it got more viewers than the royal wedding actually did. It didn't. I think the royal wedding ceremony got like 19 million viewers, and Ken and Deirdre's got 15 or so. But it was the Ken and Deirdre part of the wedding got a higher average number of viewers than maybe what was going on the on a part of. No, I can't remember. I think the whole long ceremony of Charles and Diana's maybe got lower average viewers overall, but the actual ceremony, the wedding bit of it, got higher than Ken and Deirdre's wedding ceremony. But it was a hotly contested battle. Let's just say that.
Let's just point out that, you know, as much as I love Coronation Street, there's no such thing as the Commonwealth of Coronation Street. It's not like, I'm sure that globally, Charles
it's just
and
us
Diana
in Canada, really, isn't it?
had more. No, globally, yeah. No, you can say it about the royal family. Us, Canada and Australia going, well, we like it. I'm sure that plenty of people in Australia and Canada, and even here, would say they don't like it. But so there's definitely more global interest.
Yeah. I can't remember whether there was anything particularly special or memorable about that episode, apart from we did get to see Deirdre without her glasses.
I like that, even though I don't know how, I wouldn't see anything. So
she maybe put contact lenses on.
She didn't. I remember her just taking her glasses off.
Did she?
Yeah. Now, if I had done that, you would have been lucky if I had married the right man on the day, because it could have been anybody.
But you didn't wear your glasses on our wedding, did you?
No, but
you
I had contact lenses
in there, didn't you? I can't remember whether maybe Blanche came along to that wedding as well, because I
don't know,
because she made various sporadic appearances around that time, didn't she? But I don't know. One of my favourite bits of a Corrie wedding also is the bit where they all stand outside the church and the photographer comes along and goes, "Everybody smile for the camera," and then normally a couple of characters will have some kind of little quick back and forth about something, and then they'll take the photo. One of the best ones of those was when Terry Duckworth got married to Lisa Horton in the early 90s, because Vera spent because he's just been he's in prison, isn't he? And he's chained to a prison guard for the whole of the episode, and Vera spends the episode going, "Oh, go on, let him off. He's not going to run away. He's getting married. Come on."
Yeah, he wants a photo.
Just for the photos, she's able to convince the prison guards to unhook him. And then he does a runner in the middle of the photographs, and Lisa's left there going, "Oh, Terry."
And poor Vera's like, "No,
no, Terry.
Oh dear."
No. That was a great. I do love a good wedding photo op. So going back to the 80s again, another wedding that I thought was quite important was Mike and Susan's. That to me, as we were watching back on the old episodes, felt like one of the first really, really plot-driven episodes, and the writers decided to put these characters together and get them married just to stir up the biggest amount of drama, because you got Susan, who's Ken Barlow's daughter, getting married to Mike Baldwin, his mortal enemy, and the person who had an affair with Deirdre like 3 years before. Don't remember much about the episode itself, apart from I think Ken didn't want to go at first, and Peter, Susan's brother, has to, Peter, we all know Peter has to persuade Ken to go along, and Ken's being very stubborn, saying, "I'm not going along to Baldwin's wedding."
This wasn't
Chris Gascoigne Peter. I think that was maybe one of the Scottish Peters that was in it at that point. And another important episode with a wedding in related to Mike Baldwin was in the early 90s when he gets married to Jackie Ingram, and that means...
21:27.
Oh, Shut up. And that one was particularly notable because it was the trivia answer to the shortest marriage. I can't remember whether we mentioned that one last week or not, but whenever you see a quiz book or you're in a Corrie quiz, then the question is, who had the shortest marriage on Coronation Street? Mike Baldwin and Jackie what? Jackie Ingram are always the answers to that one, because she ends up going after him with a shotgun weeks after the ceremony, because she realises that he's trying to get her factory from underneath her or something.
But that doesn't include ones where on the day they get married and then they go, "Oh, I hate you."
No, that's a jilting. That doesn't count. We will get to some jiltings later as well.
Yeah, don't get confused, people.
Yeah. What other ones are there? I reckon that if you were to push me and ask me what's my favourite wedding episode of Coronation
what's your
Street
favourite episode?
I don't know whether I want to tell you.
What?
Push me.
Tell me now.
Curly and Raquel.
I wouldn't have been able to guess.
Loved Curly and
Raquel's
Raquel's
you
wedding.
love this coercive, control, abusive,
yes,
crying in the toilets.
Yeah, it was not at all a perfect wedding, but the whole episode, which was an hour long, wasn't it? And it was set over the course of a few days. Like at the beginning beginning of the episode, she's still with Des, and then he kind of tells her that he's not interested in her. He thought she doesn't mean anything to him, or she's just a fling or whatever. Raquel turns up on Curly's doorstep then saying, "Oh, let's get married now." But it's in some ways it's kind of sweet, but in other ways it's really sad, because she just wants to marry him now so that she doesn't have an opportunity to change her mind. And when I was watching that back in the early days, or back in my early days in 1995, or 96, whenever it was, I don't think I really got that. I wasn't in tune with all the intricacies of this romantic entanglement. You didn't get the ramifications. But yeah, because for me, I just really love Curly and Raquel as a couple, and I like the idea of them getting married together, so I was really happy about it. But yeah, when they go along to the register office, she cries in the toilet, doesn't she? And Curly has to send somebody in to go and get her or something.
Weren't the staff there going, "Oh, she's crying in the toilets" or something like that?
Yeah, Curly overhears a receptionist talking about it, and he marries her anyway, because she's got marrying Raquel has been his goal for the last 3-4 years. But
he probably thought, she'll come round.
Yeah, and Curly had such an unlucky life, didn't he?
I'd rather marry
this opportunity again
when she doesn't want to than never marry her at all.
Yeah, exactly. But that was just an absolutely brilliant episode to me. The dialogue was fantastic. The having an episode, like an hour-long episode, set over the course of 4 days.
It was weird. It wasn't like watching Coronation Street, though.
No, it wasn't. It was like a little special drama, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was brilliant. That was the very first episode that was written to be an hour long. It was for the 35th anniversary of the show, and if you haven't seen that, I absolutely recommend hunting it down on YouTube or whatever, because it is. It was brilliant.
Did you like it?
I thought it was quite good, that episode, yeah.
Okay.
What else have we got? The
Gretna Green wedding.
Yes, Nick and Leanne's first one. Adam, Rick and Nick.
Yeah. She stole the wedding dress. They found witnesses from the street. It was like the sort of thing you sing about in a country and western song.
Yeah.
Or a ballad.
I think I got a feeling that Dickie and Audrey Fleming got married in Gretna Green as well, though I don't remember whether we saw that one on the show or not.
So I don't care.
Yeah, that was quite exciting, wasn't it? That was quite like, I suppose when we rewatched it, we knew that they did get married, but back in the day when it was on first, you thought, are they actually going to go through with this?
Yeah,
and having the idea of these 16-year-olds going up past the border was a bit naughty.
Yeah, because there's a like, I don't know if it's like translates to other countries, the idea of what Gretna Green means, but you can't get married that young in England or Wales.
No, you need to be 18.
Northern Ireland,
unless you've got the permission of your parents.
Yeah,
I think you can get married at 16 here, but you need mum and dad to say yes.
Yeah, so if you want to be a rebellious young teen, you go to Gretna Green, which is on the border between Scotland and England, which is why it's like the place to go.
Yeah.
But it also has now become a kind of like romantic destination for anybody to get married.
Yeah, that was a particularly memorable wedding for me as well, as was Linda and Mike going into the new millennium. So this one's just recently been on ITV3 as well, so people listening who've been keeping up with the ITV3 schedule have just seen this, and that was quite a cool one, wasn't it? Because that was almost a prototype wedding for one of the bride or groom has been having it off with somebody else secretly. But are they going to get married, or is it going to get found out? Is it going to get found out before the ceremony, at the reception, on the honeymoon? I mean, it's, we're all used to that kind of thing in a Corrie wedding now, but that was, I think, one of the earliest examples on Coronation Street.
What, Linda?
Linda and Mike.
Yeah, it was, and it wasn't...
Linda had been secretly having an affair with Mark on and off for the past
Mike's
9 months. Yeah.
And I just remember, was it Mark crying on the bed or something, and her shoving him in a room, or...
Yeah, he gets drunk because he's trying to stop her marrying his dad, and she's like, no, I'm going to go through with it. I
love how brazen she was. She was great.
Yeah. That also was another episode that had one of those really sobering speeches in there, because Mark is supposed to be Mike's best man, but he kind of chickens out of it because he thinks, no, this is wrong, I can't be the best man to my dad, and I'm
having off with his wife.
But, yeah, exactly. So Roy kind of, I think he volunteers himself for it, or it's
Roy
there's
and
nobody
Hayley
else.
Are trying to help him out, because Hayley's like his right-hand woman, Mike's right-hand woman at work.
In the factory.
And they kind of reluctantly step up to the plate to help him out on this really big day, and he's not at all grateful at all.
No, and Roy does this lovely speech about abnormal couples, saying, well, who'd have put Linda and Mike together? And he's kind of heavily hinting that people thought that about me and Hayley as well, including you, Mike.
Yeah.
So that was a really, really lovely speech.
And then he's just sitting there going, whatever, get on with it.
I also remember that episode was particularly notable because it had a post-credit scene as well, which is very unusual for Coronation Street. They get in their horse-drawn carriage, don't they? Go off down the drive, the credits play, and then
and then it goes record scratch.
And then Mike tells Linda, "Oh, you nearly had me fooled," because also during the wedding, Mike discovers Mark drunk on the bed, and it all comes out, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that was great drama for that. And also going on at the same time in that episode, you had Jim beating up Jez Quigley for having Steve beaten up as well. So that was a great episode. Any others from the early 2000s that you want to point out?
Well, the very famous Steve and Karen wedding with Tracy crashing it. This was 2004, to tell everyone about Patience, aka Amy. And Karen holding a stiletto shoe to her neck. That's a very famous Coronation Street drama. That was cool.
And interrupted weddings, but somebody storming in throughout the back is quite exciting, because you had things like that with who was it, Fiona and Alan McKenna, when they were going to get married, and Jim burst in saying, "Oh, don't marry him, Fiona," because he thinks that he's got a chance of the and over the years we've had some people trying to interrupt weddings or being prevented from interrupting weddings, like when Tracy was going to crash, was it Nick and Carla's wedding, and Jenny locks her in the underworld storeroom, and then more recently we had Abby locking Jeff in Sally's conservatory so that he didn't go and wreck Sally and Tim's wedding. I think other big weddings of that era, and you've got to say Les and Cilla, which was the I think the idea of that one was just, let's do the most craziest
ridiculous,
out there wedding as possible for this freak of a couple, basically.
And this is one of those things that were, at the time, I'm sure, had people complaining about how outlandish and silly it was, but it's the sort of thing that kind of stays in the collective memory of Coronation.
I would say that this is definitely one of the most memorable Coronation Street weddings ever, just because of the amount that they threw at it. Because you got your Cilla in her wedding dress with the little curls on her forehead that said 666. You got they get to the church where they've been able to find, is it like a fake vicar or something like that, or a vicar that was derobed, or whatever the phrase is.
Well, they broke into the church. They weren't supposed to be in the church.
Yeah, they break into the church. He does this speed ceremony because there's somebody hanging out at the back looking out for people coming to stop them, like the police or the real vicar or something. So he has to speed through the vows. They all break out of the church, another entrance, hot-foot it to the reception, where Status Quo are playing, because Les has somehow got himself embroiled in, what was the name?
Well, they were indebted to him.
Yeah, that's right. It was And then also Les ends up smashing all the wedding presents, doesn't he? He goes into the room that he thinks is the Quo's not hotel room, their break room or whatever.
Green room.
Finds a load of stuff which is actually the wedding presents. Says, "Oh, let's smash up. Let's be real rock and roll. Let's chuck it out the window." And it's his presents. And the ironic thing is that the only reason that Les and Cilla agreed to get married in the beginning was so that they could get a load of presents. So it was a perfect conclusion to that story arc, really. And it was utterly ridiculous, but I really, really did enjoy that wedding. It was an awful lot of fun.
And it had a celebrity guest star in Real Status Quo.
Yeah.
Which I don't think we've had that since.
I don't think we have. And that episode was another one that ended with different music, didn't it? Because they were playing like Rockin' All Over the World over the credit sequence, and everyone's just having a good old sing and a dance around. I had a bop around the disco floor. So that was a brilliant episode. We've also recently watched a couple of attempts at Sarah and Jason wedding, haven't we? Sarah Louise Platt and Jason Grimshaw. The first one, he does
you
a
only
runner.
wed twice.
Yes, the first one he does a runner out of the church toilet window because
church? Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think so. Because he decides he can't go through with it, he bottles it, and then the second one we just watched a few weeks ago, I think, where
is this on Halloween?
Yeah, this is a Halloween wedding. This was when David tries to spoil the wedding by
driving his car
into the canal to reenact the Hillman canal plunge to make everybody pay attention to him, basically, and ruin his sister's wedding. And that just perfectly encapsulated the antagonistic relationship between the two Platt siblings back in that time.
And she was trying to tell everybody, and nobody would believe her, even though it was obvious. And he's like smirking, and she's like going, he's ruining everything.
Yeah, because I
was like, Sarah, stop being so selfish.
Because so David's gone walkabouts at the beginning of the episode, and everyone's saying that you can't get married, we don't know where your brother is, and she's like, no, he's trying to ruin it, I'm going to go through with it. And then as the wedding ceremony's going on, the police turn up, I think I'm remembering this right, and they're trying to whisper and say, oh, we've just dragged your son's car out the canal to Gail, and Sarah's like, we're going through with it, we're going to get married, and you can see Jason's looking really worried about this, he's looking really shifty, and you're like, are you sure this is appropriate? And she's like, yep, he's just trying to make a scene. And then the whole day becomes about David, and then at the end of the episode, or towards the end of the episode, they're back at home, and David comes to the door, he's fished himself out of the canal, and then everyone's like, oh, David, so glad to see you back.
Like a little cat that's fallen down the toilet.
Yeah, and then then when he's alone in a room with Sarah, he just kind of smirks and is like, "Yep, I did do it to ruin your day."
And it worked.
Yeah, and then they drive off to their honeymoon, and David's there in the window on the top floor, smiling as they go away. That was another really, really brilliant episode.
What we like to have him as your brother. Oh my
God. What else we got? Jenny and Johnny's wedding just recently. We mentioned that because that was quite a fun one because that was a big one. I remember at the time that feeling like a huge deal. I can't remember whether it was a Super Soap Week. It was certainly an autumnal one. But that was like a double wedding, wasn't it? Because you had Eva and Aidan getting married on the same day as Johnny and Jenny.
Place.
Yeah. Eva and Aidan's wedding went wrong because she'd been pretending that she was pregnant, and there was this huge hoo-ha in the middle of the ceremony when Maria, I think it was Maria.
Yeah, she puts all the pictures under people's chairs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because Eva has got these fake scans off the internet, hasn't she? Pretending that they're her baby. Maria finds out and reveals it during the ceremony. That ends up with this that iconic scrap in the fountain.
Yeah, with Eva wearing this big puffy wedding dress.
Yeah, there's also a bit in the episode where Eva almost falls out of a window on a balcony or something, I remember.
And Toya was there.
And while all that's going on, Jenny and Johnny are supposed to be getting married. Jenny says, oh, I can't get married here, it doesn't feel right, because Rita's in hospital because she's got a brain tumour. So then they go to the hospital to get married. Another speed wedding because they can't stay in the room with that many people for so long. And I just love that because Sally Ann Matthews did a great job of showing Jenny's just overjoyed excitement at having a wedding and being with the people that she loves.
Yeah, it showed that she was getting married for the right reasons, no matter how many times people tried to say that, it was a bad idea or he was being taken advantage of.
Yeah, and then they get back to the wedding venue on motorbike, which is brilliant because she pulls up on the motorbike and has to interrupt the fountain fight between Maria and Eva, doesn't she? She's like, so hands on hips, what are you doing? Get back inside. And then the sting in the tail at the end of the episode is when Johnny carries her over the threshold of the factory and it turns out that the roof is gone. That was a fantastic episode. Really, really, really fun. Any others? Any small little shout outs that you'd like to do for weddings? Have you? I sent you this on your phone earlier, didn't I? Have you got?
Well, I looked at it like last week though.
Oh yeah, so I was just wondering, are there any other ones that are particularly kind of stand out to you that maybe don't go down in Corrie history but are worth mentioning?
Nick and Carla. I remember Leanne and Peter when the tram crash happened and he was in hospital, and I remember you saying to me, "Oh, this could be really big if they kill off Peter Barlow." I can't believe they would do that.
That was awesome because he was in the joinery, wasn't he, when they had the gas explosion, and Ashley saves him and he escapes, but he's on his deathbed literally. Yeah, I think so. And Chris Gascoigne doing a brilliant job of being this person that is at death's door, and Leanne's there saying, "I need to marry him. I thought
Leanne wasn't sure, and then she was like, "Oh wow."
I can't remember now, but I remember because I don't think that was in the live episode, but it was there or thereabouts, wasn't it? And I remember watching it being proper really, on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, it really did look like he was gonna die. So adding a wedding to that as well was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Nick and Carla's wedding, that was 2016 when when Nick was like coming to terms with the fact that Carla lied to him so easily and never will forget the line, "What colour is this napkin?" when he's like holding it in front of her face and like, saying he would tell me.
Yeah, I know what it sounds like when you tell the truth. I know what it sounds like when you lie, or something. It was something along that lines, wasn't it? But because that was when he was going through his little brain injury trauma, wasn't he? And he sprung to anger so easily. Yeah, because she'd slept with Robert at that point.
And then you've got the show She Rings, and also Toya and Imran.
I don't think, as we said on last week's podcast, that that's going to go down in history, really.
No, but I'm going to remember it. It came up because I was taking photos on my phone of the television screen, and earlier this week, my phone comes up with like memories, and it kind of like gives them little captions like "furry friends" or "out on the town" or something, and it had the picture of Toya and Imran getting married, and it said "a special day."
Oh, I know.
It's like, oh, my phone thinks I went to their wedding. I won't tell it.
No, there were only 5 people allowed at that wedding, Joe. Only 5 guests, and you weren't one of them, unfortunately.
Oh, they didn't invite me.
Yeah.
I could have been an extra. I think it would have been a bit strange. Can you imagine if there were those characters and then like just one random extra person going, "I'm just filling a seat."
Going back a little bit further, Beth and Kirk's wedding is probably worth a shout out, wasn't it? I don't think I particularly really enjoyed the 80s theme of it. But I think lots of people remember like her dressed up as Madonna. He's there in his adamant costume, and being able to see the characters dressed up in fancy dress was kind of fun. But that was kind of the era where we were complaining on the podcast a bit that the writers were giving the characters any excuse to dress up in fancy dress.
Yep.
And it's just like, oh, here we go again.
Or what do they call it abroad? Just costumes or whatever.
Costume party.
Well, they think fancy dress is weird, and it does sound weird.
That's when you're in your top and tails, isn't it?
Fancy dress.
I also really liked Fred and Maureen's wedding, because Fred was so good at weddings, because he was so kind of big.
Had so many of them.
He was so grand. He was larger than life, and seeing him there getting married to Maureen was fantastic. They had a barbershop quartet there. You got Maureen's mum, who always thought Fred was a buffoon, but she's still proud of her daughter. I think the pride between parent and child at the weddings, when they get that right, it gives you a little special lump in your throat.
Makes my heart feel funny.
Yeah.
What is this emotion?
That was also the episode where we hear that Fred's middle name is Handel, and there's a little skit running through the rest of the episode where Maxine's trying to guess Ashley's middle name as well, because it turns out that everybody in that family has got a famous composer as their middle name. So that was kind of funny.
What would yours be?
Melanie C.
Your name would be C. Your middle name is C.
What else? Norris and Angela's wedding was quite funny because That was when Derek drove Norris to the wrong church, if you remember, because just on a few days before he'd found out that Norris had been the one that had kidnapped his garden gnome, and that was like the saga of 1995, what's going on with Derek and Mavis's garden gnomes. And so he drives Norris to the wrong church, and then it's like, well, where is everybody? Why aren't they turning up? And Derek kind of crows at him that he's taken him to the wrong place. I also loved this wedding of these between these two characters called Olive Clark and Edwin Turner. So Olive was somebody that did we talk about this one last week? I can't remember. She was somebody that Percy had fallen in love with, and then she said, "Oh, I can't get married to you, sorry." And then about 6 months later, Percy receives an email, not in 1993, gets a letter, an invite from Olive saying, "Come along to my wedding," and he goes along, and he's kind of, and Emily has to try and make him see that, don't be sour grapes about it. Come along and enjoy the ceremony. And throughout the ceremony, or at one point in the ceremony, the vicar's doing his speech about the groom Edwin, and it turns out he was a conscientious objector during the war. And to Percy, that's like red rag to a bull, isn't it? And he's there, kind of clenching his fist at this like traitor in his eyes.
Kermit the Frog when his face gets sucked in like a lemon. I think that's probably it for weddings that went right that I remember. But there were certainly, I don't know. I suppose you got Daniel and Sinead was quite poignant a few years ago, where Beth's found a lump on Sinead's neck, and so the whole wedding has to go through with Sinead thinking, "Oh no, my cancer's coming back." That was very, very bittersweet. There was, of course, the one a few years ago as well where Steve and Tracy get married, and Steve punches Steve at the reception afterwards because she thinks that he's had it off with Leanne. I think they're the main ones that particularly stand out to me, but there have also been quite a few notable unsuccessful weddings on Coronation Street as well over the year. And according to Coripedia, there have been 29 weddings that didn't quite go ahead as planned or weren't legally recognised. And as the decades went on, the numbers certainly increased. So in the early, the first 4 decades of Coronation Street, there was one or two maybe weddings in the whole decade that didn't go through, or when Emily decides to jilt Leonard Swindley in 62, 63 is it? I can't remember, because she realises she doesn't love him. But in the last decade, in the tens, there were 11 weddings, so that's on average one a year that didn't go through. Bad,
or wasn't legally recognised. And most years actually since the millennium have had one. There was I've written down, so 2000, 2002, 2004, 7, 8, 10 and 20 didn't have weddings that didn't go wrong. But yeah, the vast majority of years there's a wedding that is cancelled at the altar. So that's so at least Toya and Imran, whatever the future may hold for them as a married couple, and it's not looking too rosy at this point. At least they did manage to actually get married.
Yeah, that's the main thing. You got to get through the hurdle, don't you?
Yeah.
Now, I would say my most memorable wedding that didn't go ahead is probably Emily and Leonard.
Yeah.
And that was the first one. And Emily was such I don't know if you can imagine this, a timid spinster. And she always had this crush on Leonard Swindley, who was like this big pompous windbag.
He was their boss as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, she's just in awe of him.
And she kind of mistook that for love.
Yeah, and so they got all the way up to the day, and then she decides it's not morally right for her to get married because she didn't love him. Yeah,
she's very stoic about it, and she's just like, I don't think I'm going to go through with this actually. And I think he ends up going on the honeymoon on his own, and it's just they're all very British and prim and proper about it.
Well, I think maybe one of the reasons that she thought this is because she's quite religious, and the Bible has got a lot of things to say about what a marriage is and why you should get married, and
and she was recognising that maybe their romance didn't have all the traits that would be required to become husband and wife.
Would Jesus give me the thumbs up?
Yeah.
No.
I think in the days before failed weddings or jiltings or whatever became ten a penny, you're right, that was certainly a famous one. The other one, of course, was Merrick and Dave.
Hang on.
What? Merrick and Davis.
No.
Mavis and Derek, who in 1984 jilted each other.
Yeah.
And that's not anything I think that Coronation Street has attempted since. And it was perfect for them as a
Love
couple
it.
because they spent years... Well, Derek spent a long time going in and out of Mavis's life, and she would put her trust in him only for him to completely ruin it. Like when she thought that she was being bought a holiday or something, and it turns out it's just for his sister. Yeah, exactly.
For his mum.
Yeah, so they get to the day of the wedding, and Mavis can't go through with it, and Rita's like, you can't leave it to the last minute. You need to. You need to go. Let's just go to the wedding. Rita was always
such a massive bitch to me.
Derek's probably waiting there now. So, but Mavis in the end says, no, I'm not going to go through with it. So I think Rita has to go along to the church to apologise to Derek. But then it turns out that Derek's also not there. Derek's not even in the episode. But that was a really funny set up for a wedding between these two characters that just for the whole of their lives couldn't make any decisions about anything. I can't remember what happened on their actual wedding. I don't know whether that was particularly memorable at all. I think their jilted wedding was the most famous one. Any other failed weddings that stand out to you?
Well, there's the girl power wedding where Shelley jilts abusive Charlie at the altar.
That was great.
And
wasn't it?
she strides off triumphantly, and her mum's like, yes.
Yeah.
But then...
Because she jilts him quite early on in the episode, doesn't she? Or is it a two-parter, and in the beginning of the second half, that's when she's done it, and the rest of the episode is the fallout?
Well, he doesn't take this line down, does he? He shoves her in the car and drives her to some wasteland where he kind of has it out with her, but she refuses to acquiesce, and then she ends up in her wedding dress striding into town.
She's just striding down the road, isn't she? With this magnificent, puffy wedding dress. Yeah.
And there's an old woman staring at her, and she's like, I jilted him, I can do better. And the lady's like, good for you.
Yeah, and then she goes back to the Rovers and cuts herself a massive slice of cake because
he'd been starving her.
Yeah, telling her that she was too fat and having a competition. Let's see how much weight Shelley can lose and stuff. Yeah, she just comes and scoffs herself silly with this wedding cake. That was a brilliant episode. I also, with that kind of jilting, really enjoyed Sharon's wedding to Ian, where at the altar she decides that she's not going to marry him anymore because she's discovered that he'd been having an affair with Natalie Barnes. But she decided originally to go through with it anyway, and then decides when she gets there, no, I'm not going to do it. So that was a great one. We had... do you remember? Oh, go on.
No.
You're Becky and Steve.
I was just about to say that, yeah.
Yeah. She gets the big puffy pink dress, doesn't she? And then gets totally bladdered.
Ballerina Barbie.
Yeah.
And she gets drunk, and the registrar's like, I'm sorry, I can't actually marry you because you are too sloshed.
We'll be watching that one very soon on our rewatch because we've just finished 2008 yesterday, so this is going to be on the agenda to watch. And Becky's been brilliant. It's been funny. Some of the characters there that we thought we would really love seeing again, like early Carla, we've been feeling fairly meh about. Okay. But Becky McDonald to be has been just perfect, hasn't she?
Lovely.
Absolutely love her.
Then we've got Sophie and Sean, who should have been the first gay wedding on the 29th of December 2011. And that is a jilting because Sophie tells her that they can't get married because she kissed Amber.
Yeah, they were so close, weren't they? Yep. I've enjoyed Michelle. She's had quite a few good weddings, hasn't she? Both to Robert.
I don't think we've ever said I've enjoyed Michelle on this podcast before.
She's got lots of traits that kind of wound me up when she was in the show, but she had a good wedding. And the first one in 2018, she was supposed to be marrying Robert, and then Phelan bursts into the ceremony and shoots her, which is pretty brilliant.
Yeah, do it again.
It didn't happen quite like that, but because he comes in because Nicola's been shot, hasn't she? And he kind of carries her into the bistro, going, "Oh, somebody help me!" And then he takes Nicola through to the back, and doesn't Maria try and jump him or something, and he shoots her. I thought that was amazing. Shoot Michelle, sorry. And she's there with bleeding out all over her wedding dress. It's awesome, but the
lying on the floor, going, oh no.
But she managed to squirm out of that one, doesn't she, to live another day.
Me and you going, yeah,
And then her second wedding was the one that was just a few years ago, where she's found out beforehand that he'd been having basically leading a double life. Robert had with Irish Vicky, and she reads out his text messages their text messages between each other.
Vows.
Yeah, at the altar.
Those are the best vows.
That was a very fun wedding ceremony as well. I did enjoy that. And then I guess another one that's not taken place that's quite memorable is Emma and Curtis, because he gets
another 29th of December wedding.
Yeah. Didn't he get that was 10 years to the day after Sophie and Sean's wedding. Doesn't he get arrested at the end of it? Does it?
Well, because they think that he's committed fraud with the banks.
Yeah, because the bank scam.
I'm not a thief, I'm a liar.
Maybe not so memorable at the moment. It's kind of lingering in my head because it was fairly recently that happened. So yeah, whether the wedding ceremonies have taken place or not, Coronation Street has certainly seen a good number of memorable ceremonies over the years, and it's been quite nice looking back over the wedding album with you this evening and picking out some of our favourites. And then we haven't done a Patreon episode for top weddings at the moment, but I wonder if there were any, like thinking about those ones that we just picked out, are there any that jumped to your mind saying yes,
I couldn't give
that's going to be there?
Could I?
No, but you might change your mind if you thought about it a bit more. Any there that you think, well, that would probably be in the contention for...
Well, it's difficult because, do you mean weddings that I enjoyed or weddings that I feel like were important in some way?
Oh, enjoyed.
For the story.
Ones that you thought that was a good wedding. Because I said Raquel and Raquel, and maybe if we do get around to doing that for a Patreon, that's maybe giving that one away if that is my number one.
I think the Eva, Aidan, Johnny and Jenny one was really good.
Yeah, the double wedding, that was awesome. I think the Shelley one stands out in my mind just for that particular scene where she jilts him, because that's been leading up to it for so long. And the Dennis and Jenny one for whatever reason stays in my mind as well.
Yeah.
Any other ones for you there? You'd have to Les and Cilla, I suppose. I
think Linda and Mike was like probably the most sort of EastEndery drama kind of.
Is it just because he's a Cockney?
No, well, yeah, all right, but it was proper like hand wringing, crying, running through different rooms, traumatic. Stuffing people in boots or whatever, and
yeah,
throwing things around, people not turning up, kind of a wedding.
Yeah. So it's been fun. I've enjoyed this. Thank you everybody for listening. I hope we've been able to bring back a few memories of Corrie weddings past, and maybe if there's any that we've been talking about here that you think, I need to go onto YouTube or whatever and check that out. That sounds fun. That maybe have inspired you to do a little bit of Corrie watching as well.
Why don't you spend the weekend wedding watching?
Yeah, do it. It's
Coronation Street style.
And any particular type of weddings, just before we finish, that I know we want to have the gay wedding at some point, but any other wedding tropes, or not tropes, any other wedding styles or whatever that we haven't seen? Are we waiting for the first?
I just want a big, like you said, a big community. This feels special. These characters are important. As the years have gone by and the cast has got bigger, it's felt like the weddings take on a slightly different meaning to what they used to be, which was you genuinely felt like you were part of a community watching somebody in that community get married. So
because the cast was smaller as well, it often felt like everybody is there.
Yeah. So what I would really like is, I don't know how they're going to ever do this, get two really beloved big name characters and have them get married in a really romantic ceremony where everybody's there and everybody just has a really nice time and it feels significant. But the trouble is, the longer Corrie goes, the more it becomes the 100th wedding or whatever, and so it loses its meaning. I don't know if
that's why they need to find something special, have we had a wedding yet where the bride or groom has died on the wedding day?
Oh, that'd be a good... Yeah, we haven't, have we? That'd be a good one.
Yeah. Maybe they could do something where, in the publicity and the run-up to it, they say either the bride or the groom will die.
Yeah, and they could have the whole way through,
who's it going to be?
People kind of nearly, leaning against a railing, and you can see that the railing's wobbly, and you're like, oh, he's going to go over. Oh, no, it's not that. Or, somebody accidentally smashes the glass and nobody notices, and there's glass in the champagne, and they're about to take a swig, and somebody goes, no, don't. You know what I mean? And then at the very end, just gets run over by the horse and cart.
Yeah, that sounds fun to me.
Sounds brilliant.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, we haven't even, like, mentioned there's been a couple of prison weddings in Coronation Street, haven't there? Like, Fizz and John get married in a prison. Liz and Jim got married in a prison as well, for one of their weddings. I'm trying to think if there's any other important or visually spectacular venues that Coronation Street could have, like back of a biplane or
underwater.
Oh, well, I mean, the Rover still has never been used as a venue for a wedding, has it?
It's licensed, Michael.
Well, I think maybe it's time that
Can
Jenny
you license
got that.
a pub though?
Yeah, probably.
All right.
And then go to the church for the reception afterwards, just to have a reverse
Just
wedding.
to be like, how do you like it, Vicar?
Yeah.
Get the tea urn out.
Or maybe, I mean, I'm thinking, I suppose with Rana and Kate's wedding, I'm thinking like proper deathbed weddings where one of them dies afterwards as well. That was close because Rana kind of unofficially gets married to Kate while she's dying, doesn't she? I can't remember what happens. Did somebody go in there and pretend to marry them or something just to appease them? Did Billy squeeze in there maybe? I don't remember. Not sure.
Maybe that does count as a wedding where somebody dies.
Maybe it does. I don't know. If anyone's got any other ideas for what hasn't been done in Coronation Street, the thing is, it's probably been done in another soap, hasn't it?
Yeah.
They even had a wedding for a dog on Neighbours, if I remember rightly, didn't they? Didn't Bouncer get married in that dream sequence?
I don't know.
Right. Time to go.
I'll tell you what they've not done on Coronation Street that they did on Neighbours.
What's
have
that?
Kylie Minogue and Jason Donovan get married.
That's very true. We're going to go now. Thank you, everybody, for coming along. Take a slice of cake
to
on
our
the way
wedding,
out.
yes. We've got some sugared almonds for you, and
Yes,
don't forget to sign the guest book.
Exactly. Hopefully we weren't too echoey for you in our new room. We'll see how this turns out. See if there's any knobs that we can twiddle or settings that we can change for next time. But I like being in this new place, and it's been a bit more comfortable than crouching on the bed.
Well, this is your room, isn't it? This is really Michael's room.
This is Michael's den room now, yeah. And it's our AV room. It's very cool. Right, we're going to be back this weekend with our thoughts on this week's Coronation Street episodes. We'll try and make it Saturday morning this week, unlike last weekend where we had to eke it out a little bit and get it there for you on Saturday night.
I'm sorry, Michael, it's got to be done because we've got Eurovision.
Oh, we do have Eurovision coming up this Saturday, don't we? We've got friends coming around for that, so we absolutely got to record on Friday night and get it out on Saturday morning. So, yeah, look out for that, see what we think. And
I wonder who will win Eurovision.
I wonder who
and I wonder who will come last.
Are they actually in it?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Awkward.
No. Oh, Russia. No,
Yeah.
I don't think Russia's in it. I'm talking about us.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was a bit inappropriate.
No.
Let's try our luck anyway. Why not? Let's just try and see if we can beat Britain at least.
I wanted Russia to be in it so he would be last, but somebody would vote for him.
Yeah, unlike us. Right, we are going. Thank you everybody for listening. Ta-ra for now. Goodbye.
Bye.
See you.